Hey y'all, welcome back. If it's your first time here, welcome back as well. I wanted to start off this video by saying thank you so much to you all. Thank you for watching my videos, supporting my photography, giving me encouragement, hell, even giving me constructive criticism. It means a lot to have this level of support for a channel at my level. I wanted to do something as a thank you for you all, so I put out into the world that I would answer some questions for a video, and y'all delivered. I got a ton, and I decided to group them into, 5 different categories: personal, why I take the photos I take, gear, post-processing, and a more general, bigger picture category. So, without further ado, let's get into it. This is obviously a pretty general, big question. I got into photography by really, I play in a lot of bands, and I've been playing in bands for a really long time. Hardcore metal bands, and I would go into these shows and I would have nothing to really do in between sets. I mean, of course, I'm enjoying the music, I'm hanging out, but I wanted to contribute more besides just playing shows. So one of the things I looked into doing was taking pictures. So I borrowed a camera and took it to a show and basically just went into the frying pan. Shooting concerts is extremely difficult. The subjects are low light. They're moving around a lot. You're often getting bumped into, people are moshing or whatever. So it was definitely into the frying pan to learn, but it's something I really enjoyed doing. And that really led me onto this path of taking pictures. And I basically just did show photography for a really long time, but that's really how I got into photography. All right, well, how I really got into it when I was young. That was kind of the only thing that I was ever interested in artistically. I have a pretty distinct memory of being as a kid, and there was a photography thing I did where it was like an art contest for the school, and you could choose any medium and do however you wanted. And I don't even remember what the contest was. I do remember I lived on an island, and so there's this lighthouse, and I took pictures of the lighthouse and the buildings around it, and I don't even remember if I did very well, but I remember loving taking pictures. But growing up, we weren't well off, so photography was not something that I could just easily do. It's it's an expensive hobby even now, so that's really how I got into photography. I'm kind of a bad photographer in this way where I don't really know who my influences are. I'm sure the stuff I look for is pulling from somewhere, and I see a lot of photography that I like, but I don't really have a lot of just named influencers. I can't name a lot of photographers besides friends. Of course, there's always the classics like Ansel Adams. I'm not doing what he does, so it's not really a direct influence. I think one of the only kind of contemporary photographers that I consider a pretty strong influence that really changed the way I view night photography is Todd Hido. I'm not 100% sure how to say that. Again, I've never even listened to the man say his own name, but his photos really inspire me, and they're otherworldly, but they're the house across the street. It's a building down the road that you pass by 1,000 times, but he has a way of capturing it that it speaks to me. It's something I really love. I've tried to come up with an artsy answer here. I like to photograph the stuff that's sort of unseen, the stuff that most people pass by. Again, speaking to my Todd Hido inspiration, where it's often it's just something that most people pass by 1,000 times and you don't even give it another chance. But when I see it, it really catches me. I don't want to be too generic, but abandoned buildings are a big one, obviously, for that, but also just small towns. I live in North Florida, and Gainesville's surrounded by all these little bitty towns that, they're pass-through towns. But for me, I purposefully like to go and drive around and look for stuff and just see what there is and what I can find. I don't know. There's something about it, something that calls to me. This is something that's really hard to nail down. It's just a feeling. It's just seeing something that really speaks to me. And it's, it's cliche to say, but film makes you really question and slow down what you're doing. So I took that and I just really made sure is this not worth taking a photo? If you're taking a photo of it, it's worth taking a photo of. But does this really speak to me? Does this really mean something to me? This is kind of a hard question because it's really what makes my style, I guess. And it's hard to nail down. But the short answer is I know it when I see it. This is sort of a mixed bag. I typically don't plan shots. That's one of the things I like to do is just I like to go for a drive and just look and see what I find and see what's around and see, especially different times of day, not knowing what the light is going to be, not knowing where you're going, really 100% just see where it takes you. A lot of the work I produce comes like more natural that way, and it's the stuff I'm more excited about. I think it's also because I really just like traveling and exploring, so like those go hand in hand real strong. The most planning I'm doing is just kind of guessing where I'm going on the trip, and that's more of a general like, oh, I'm going to go to this town or this town. Maybe I'll go near the city center just because I know there's probably some stuff that I want to see there. But yeah, so I don't really like to plan stuff out. These questions kind of go hand in hand. You know, what do I think I'm best at? What do I want to improve at? I'm going to start with what I want to improve at. I don't like to boast. I definitely need to improve at my compositions. Compositions are something I struggle with, like I said earlier, but it's something that I've really, really tried to do. I need to learn patience to where sometimes the light is good, but I know if I wait another 30 minutes, the light will be even better because it'll have shifted slightly and it'll give me a little bit better of a shadow. But oftentimes I'm so run and gun that patience is hard to have. But what I shoot best, I mean, film wise, again, it's these places that people don't see. I think I captured that really well. And oftentimes I'll have a lot of people just be like, I drove by that building every day for a year and I never saw it in the way that it's in this photo. And that's something that brings me a lot of pride. Favorite film stocks. Wow. Currently my favorite color film stocks, I really like Flickfilm's Electra 100, which is just respooled Kodak Aero Color 4. It's like this aerial surveillance film that they still make, and Kodak doesn't sell it to the general public, so Flickfilm repackages it, but it's a really, really wonderful color film that has a pretty unique color palette. I really like that. I really like Harman Phoenix 2. I think when you scan it correctly, that film can be really, really, really beautiful. As far as black and white goes, my go-to is usually T-Max 400. When I was starting off, a good friend of mine, Ray, basically gave me a bunch of T-Max that he had in his freezer that he wasn't shooting anymore. And so I just was shooting T-Max from the get-go, and I really fell in love with it. However, Kintmere 400, hard to beat the price that in terms of black and white, especially because you can push it. I pushed it to 3200 so easily, and it looks great. You get a ton of grain, but like I love that. I think there's merits in most films, even things that I find weird, like I don't know, Harman Phoenix 1. I think Harman Phoenix 1 can be used in a really effective way. I also really like the Lomography, like purple, the kind of different colored films. You know, a lot of people push those off as experimental, and it's like, yeah, but it's really cool to be able to experiment and do different things. Obviously, this is mostly a film-focused channel, but I do shoot a lot of digital. My current digital setup is a Canon RP. It's a mirrorless camera. I've had it for a couple years. It's a really wonderful camera, and the best thing about it is I use an adapter that I shoot all EF lenses rather than RF lenses, because my go-to film camera is my Canon Rebel 2000. I picked it up for $50 brand new in the box from a friend, and that thing is an incredible camera. The light metering, the autofocus, the lenses that are available, it's easy to use, it's light, and if something goes wrong, like I have like 3 more of them, just because like if something goes wrong, they're like $40. They're super cheap. I actually think there's this big renaissance right now, or a little push from a lot of people on YouTube to really say, hey, give these 90s cameras a chance. Like, they don't look great, but they work really, really well. You pair it with like a pancake lens, it's basically the best point and shoot you could ever have. But yeah, so my go-to cameras are definitely that digital RP, the Canon RP. If I'm shooting 35 millimeters, probably going to be my Canon Rebel 2000 or my AE1 program, which I also really love. But then for medium format, I'm usually going for my Bronica ETRS, the 645 camera. I've got a couple lenses for it that I absolutely love. That or my Fujica G690, which is my newest medium format camera. But you only get 8 shots per roll that thing, so I don't bring it out as often as as I should. The first film camera I got as an adult getting into film photography was a Konica TC Auto Reflex. I really do love that camera, but that's just because it was the first one I got. And then I got my Canon AE1 program, and I just absolutely fell in love with that thing. I fell in love with the lenses I have for it. Is it my favorite of all time? That's a really hard question. I don't know. I don't think so, but it is a really, really, really wonderful camera that produces some really great images, and it just feels good in the hands. You know, it's got everything that you want from an old school camera like that. I also really love my Polaroid SX70. That camera is absolutely fantastic and takes some really wonderful images. Man, this is a hard question. It's probably, design-wise, it's probably the SX70, just because it's such an insanely cool camera. But practically, it's probably my Canon A1. One day I would really, really, really love to have a, I know this has been hype all over the internet for a while, Mamiya 7. I think the 6.7 format is a format I really like, but it's not a camera format system I own. And I think that those cameras, I've shot with one before, they just feel so good in the hands. The lenses are amazingly sharp. You don't have to, everyone on the internet talks about them. Would I want to like a, sure, if I was given one, of course, but I would rather if I was going to save up money, I would rather get a Mamiya 7 than a Leica any day. I'm praying to the gods I find one at a thrift shop one day. I know who asked this question. I've been developing at home for a while, but I got, basically, I think I'm not going to name names, but I got a new batch of chemicals, and I fucked up like three rolls in a row, and I don't know if it was my fault or if it was the chemicals' fault, but I do know that it really, really discouraged me from continuing to develop at my house, because I fucked up 2 rolls that were not even mine, and that was a truly awful feeling. It's definitely on pause for now. I do all my own scanning still at home, because that saves me a lot of money, but I've been sending my film off to a lab here in Florida called Thacker's. It's based out of Fort Lauderdale. Very affordable, pretty quick turnaround. But yeah, like I was saying, I do my own scanning at home, because I think that is the piece of advice I wish I could give everyone. If you're doing film photography and you're looking for a little bit more control or a way to save money, you should be scanning yourself. There's a million ways you can do it. The way I do it, just because it's what made sense to me at the time, is I use a flatbed scanner. I have an Epson V600, and it's kind of slow, but it does create some pretty amazing scans. When I realized that labs were doing editing, they were editing my photos before sending them to me, it really clicked. I was like, if I was shooting digital, I would never just hand someone a raw file and go, you edit it, and then I'll deal with that later. It's like, no, I want to control my own edits, and I want to control everything in terms of that. So I should be scanning myself. There's a little bit of a learning curve for that stuff. I scan it with the V600 using Silverfast, but I just keep it very basic. Maybe I'll use the digital, dust removal, and then I throw that all into Lightroom and use the Negative Lab Pro plugin to convert and edit. And using that process, I've gotten some really, really wonderful results. And I think the thing that also made it really click was the first time I shot Harmon Phoenix and edited it this way, and it just was leagues above any of the lab scans I had gotten. And I was like, oh, you just gotta edit it correctly, and then you can get some really cool stuff. I don't like to go overboard with editing. A basic rule of thumb I like to keep is this something that was possible in a darkroom? If so, then I'll mess with it. If not, then I try to stay, if I do use that tool, I try to stay back. I try to hold back as much as I can. I am not casting any shade on people who do a ton of editing. If that's the way you want it to look, by all means do it. It's just not for me. Once I'm done editing a photo, so I upload everything to Flickr, and I have a copy on my hard drive, and then I usually share on Instagram. You saw the Instagram at the beginning of this video. I also have a photo account and a Newgrain account. I'm not as active on those as I am on Instagram. However, Instagram, as we all know, is every day getting worse to use. So maybe one day I'll get off of it. But for now, that's mostly where I'm sharing, at least digitally. Because the other thing I do is I like to print my own photo books. I've done a couple zines, not photo books. I've done a couple zines. Last year I did a year-long series where every season I took my favorite photos of that season, printed them into a zine, and then self-published. Like, I would print like 20 to 30 copies. I've sold some of those. And if you're interested in one, let me know. I think printing and sharing your work is super important, and it's something I've been trying to do. Right now I'm working on a couple more zine ideas to hopefully have out this year. Well, as someone whose major artistic export is photography, I think photography is super important to the art community. I think that a lot of people, especially with the advent of the phones in your pocket having the best cameras you could buy 20 years ago, I think that photography has become, in a lot of people's minds, a little lessened, just because it is easier than ever to take a really wonderful photo. But I think that that's amazing. You know, there's this theory out there that the world's greatest photographer is some, you know, soccer parent with just an iPhone 14, and they're taking the greatest photos in the world, and they have no idea because they're just taking them on their phones, and those photos will get deleted and we'll never see them. The technology being available has really widened the artistic medium in a way that makes it super cool in one ways, but it's also super saturated in others. Speaking of, you know, everyone having a phone in their pocket, I think there's this old argument about like what is art, and I think that anything can be art. You know, there's Dadaism with pieces of a sculpture that is literally a toilet or a cup just covered in fur, and people are arguing, is this art, is this art? It's like anything can be art. Is it good art? That's a different argument, but everything can be art. It's about the intention of the creator. And so I think that like this label of what is a photographer, because everyone has a phone in their pocket, everyone's a photographer. You're a photographer if you take photos. Now, are you a good photographer? Again, that's the argument, I think. But I think that everyone, if you take a photo, you're a photographer. End of story. Do I want to see your work? Maybe not, but that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. You're a photographer. I run a photography group here in Gainesville called the Photo Collective of Gainesville. Me and a couple friends run that. And I think one of the coolest things that we do is we compare each other's work. We're not doing it in a critiquing sort of way. It's more just like we'll get together and we go out and shoot photos together. So we're all taking photos of the similar subjects. And then it's so cool to see how someone took the same subject and made it completely different. I think that's super, super cool. And that leads me to feel very inspired. And maybe that's my biggest inspiration is just the people in my photo club, but just seeing what they saw in the same subject that I saw and how they took that photo is super cool. I don't like to do it critically. I don't really like to be like, okay, well, clearly mine's better because of this or this, but I will point out why the compositions are different, but that doesn't to me necessarily scream which one is better. But it definitely will help you understand why they feel different. So that's kind of the only way I really critique my photos with other people's, is just to understand why they feel so different. I think the biggest thing is how it makes you feel. Now, a lot of these composition rules are there to make it interesting, and that makes you feel good, or at least makes you feel interested in the photo. But I think like if a photo can, you know, it can break every single composition rule and still make you feel good, therefore it's a good photo. For me, there's certain compositions that I'm definitely drawn to, and I've been slowly learning that over the last several years, like what I like and what I don't like. Ultimately, it's just the pure feeling of, does it make me feel good? If it does, then I like it. If I don't, then it's bad. It's not bad, but it's not for me, you know. I saved this question for last because I do feel that this can be a sort of bummer / weird answer. Like I said earlier, everyone has a cell phone in their pocket. Everyone's a photographer. Everyone's posting the Instagram pictures of everything they ever do all the time. And I think that can feel really, really overwhelming. I definitely have felt overwhelmed in times if I'm photographing a band and there are 20 other photographers there. And it's like, well, why do my photos matter? And the truth of the matter is they don't. But I don't take that in a negative way. I take that as nothing matters. You should be creating art because you want to create it. Not because you should be taking pictures because you want to take the photos, not to appease other people. If you're shooting photos just for other people, you're going to get overwhelmed and you're going to get really bummed out and you're going to get disappointed in the oversaturation of the market. But if you're taking photos for yourself, in the grand scheme of things, as long as you are happy with them, then that's all that matters. Nothing else matters. Who cares if they'll ever be in a gallery? If you're able to look at them on your phone or in your hands and you like them, end of story. In the grand scheme of things, my photos are insignificant. I'm just another photographer taking pictures of abandoned buildings, but who cares if it's insignificant? I really like it, and you got to do what makes you happy. I mean, that's the whole thing in life, right? That's the whole crux of existence for me, is you do what makes you happy and you do the things that make you feel good, and that's the purpose of life. And so that's the purpose of art for me. Is it makes me feel good. It makes me feel fulfilled. It makes me feel like I'm scratching that itch that's deep in my brain. So yeah, I'm insignificant. And that's okay. Fuck it. And that's that. Thank you again to everyone who submitted questions. I wanted to specifically shout out a few wonderful photographer friends that asked some stuff. Andrew Park, Mike West, John Bird, Tommy Calderon, and Onima Kamal. Check out their social media. I'll link some stuff below. You won't be disappointed. But as always, thank you all for watching this video and supporting my photography adventures. And please leave a comment below if you have any strong opinions about anything I said. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more film photography content like this. And if you enjoyed this video, I'll see you all next time.